The Canon 80D is one of the cameras that YouTube was built on. No kidding, some of the biggest creators cut their teeth on it, and some continue to use it to this day. On the other hand, the M50 does basically all of the same things. It's half the size, half the price, and can record in 4K? Which one is the best for making YouTube videos? Let's find out. What's up everyone, I'm the Everyday Dad, and if I can figure it out, you can figure it out. I've been wanting to make this video for a very long time. If you've watched my channel for any amount of time, you know that the M50 is one of my favorite cameras. It's crazy small, has an awesome 1080p image, some great autofocus, and is one of the smallest interchangeable lens cameras you're gonna find on the market today. However, the 80D continues to be a top-selling DSLR that kicks butt in both photography and, as we saw on Monday, has a really incredible video image quality. But it is pretty big, and for what you get, it's kind of expensive. Both have some serious benefits, and it's time to pit these two against each other for who will be the top dog of the Canon video camera lineup. But before we get too far into the video, let's cover the basic specs of both cameras to get us all on the same page. And, quick disclaimer, I am not a photographer, nor am I a professional videographer. I make home videos and these YouTube videos you see, so the specs and features we'll be focusing on today are the ones that matter most to the online content creator. And to start off, let's go age before beauty. The Canon 80D was released back in February of 2016. It's a DSLR with a huge mirror and an even bigger body to house that mirror in. It has a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. It has Canon's awesome dual pixel autofocus, and it has a 3-inch fully articulating touchscreen display. It can record in up to 1080p, 60 frames per second, and a rarity on these cameras is it does have a weather resistant body. The Canon M50, on the other hand, was released almost 2 years later to the dot in February of 2018. It also has a 24 megapixel APS-C CMOS sensor. It uses Canon's EFM lens lineup. It also has dual pixel autofocus and 1080p video. One of the benefits is it does have the new Digic 8 processor, and it also has a fully articulating touchscreen. It can record 4K up to 24 frames per second, but you will get an additional, actually pretty severe crop. Physically, the two cameras could not be farther apart. The 80D is a huge, bulky DSLR that has an awful lot of buttons. Plus, on the top of the body, it has an LCD screen that can show you some information when taking photos, but I mean, it doesn't really do anything for us video people except showing us our exposure compensation. Now, the 80D feels amazing. Like I mentioned in the video on Monday, it is absolutely one of the best feeling cameras of all time. And for me personally, the physical aesthetics of a piece of gear may not be able to make or break that gear, but it goes a long way towards justifying the cost to me. The M50 is small, and I mean really small. I basically can fit the thing into one hand. And not only is the M50 small, the EFM lenses are also shockingly small. Now, both of the kit lenses are stabilized, 3.5 at the wide end. Yes, the EFS lens is 18 to 135, but look at that size difference. The EFS lens is basically the same size as the darn M50 itself. Now, I do think the M50 feels pretty good too, especially for the price of entry, but it's not even in the same ballpark as the 80D. And while it does have some buttons and dials, it doesn't have as many as I'd like, and it doesn't even come close to how many the 80D has. Something the two cameras do have in common, however, is that they both have a fully articulating touchscreen that you can change the settings for both cameras from in front of them, which cannot be overstated how important and powerful this is. I mentioned this in my M50 video, maybe, what's it been, 6 months now? And I'm gonna continue to stress that being able to change the settings in front of the camera saves so much time when you spend all of your time in front of the camera. I don't wanna get up and change the settings. I wanna be able to change them and see it's just so much better when you can do it in front of the camera. But that's enough talking at the cameras. It's time to compare these two against each other in the most important camera aspects ever conceived for online content creation. They're really important. First up, image quality. Now, this is kind of a weird comparison this time. Normally, it's pretty clear cut as to who will be the winner, especially when there is such a wide disparity in price between the two cameras. But really, the M50 has the better video specs in my opinion, while still being the far cheaper camera. I do think the 80D has a higher bitrate, however the M50 has the updated Digic 8 image processor, and it has the ability to do 4K, where if you paid attention back during the spec portion, you'll notice the 80D can only do 1080p. Now there are some serious limitations to that 4K, but it can still do it. Now neither does have any kind of built-in stabilization, but the M50 has digital image stabilization. Now, I mean, it's not great, but at least it's something. I mean, both kit lenses also do have OIS built into them, but having electronic image stabilization lets you stabilize a little bit some prime lenses too. But don't take my word for it, let's hop outside and do a quick video slash vlogging test between the two cameras. Welcome to the video slash vlogging test of the Canon 80D versus the Canon M50. To reiterate, these do have very similar video specs. The 80D does 1080p up to 60 frames per second, and the M50 also does 1080p up to 60 frames per second. It can also do 4K up to 24 frames per second, but you will lose that really nice dual pixel autofocus. So let's pop these on our tripods, do some vlogging. What else? Because what else do you do with cameras these days? Photos? Pfft. Home videos? Pfft. What we're doing? We're vlogging. There we go. Vlogging setup ready. You know, we got the tripods, we got the cameras. Now here's a question that I want you to ponder as we go through this video. Do you think there will be some fiddly differences between these two cameras? Just think about it. Don't, you know, for those that watch a lot, don't spoil it for everybody. To the vlogging test. I can't do the double. We'll go this way this time. Whoa. Okay, and here we go. We are on the vlogging test of the Canon M50 and the Canon 80D. Now I will say they're both currently set to auto intelligent plus, whatever the AI with the plus sign, and this is the video quality you can expect to see out of both cameras. Now I will say neither has built-in stabilization. Both of these lenses though do have stabilization built into them. The M50 does have electronic stabilization, but it crops a lot in on the image, so I tend to not use it that much because when you're vlogging you want like as bright as possible, right? So here you go, this is the video quality between the two. I will say the arm carrying the M50 feels much better than the arm feeling the 80D because the 80D, super big. Look at that sucker. Let's spin us around. Look at that sucker. It's huge. That is a monster camera. But you do get some benefits out of it, like you can use lenses without needing an adapter, whereas the M50 will need an adapter. Now the audio you're currently hearing is still out of my recorder, but this is the audio out of the Canon M50. Audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3, and this is the audio out of the 80D. Audio test 1, 2, 3, audio test 1, 2, 3. We're gonna take a break for a second because my arms is tired. Okay, back at it. Now, one of the benefits, we talk about this all the time with the Canon cameras, is I can see that I'm in focus on both, and I just trust Canon's dual pixel autofocus. Like, I can't trust Panasonic cameras, unfortunately. I can't necessarily trust Sony cameras because I can't see what I'm doing. But I like being able to see what I'm doing, and I like being able to trust that it's in focus. Even in auto here, it's doing pretty well. This lens is way bigger than this lens, but this is an 18 to 135. This is a 15 to 45 millimeter lens. They're both 3.5. The M50's lens caps out at 6.3 at the zoom end, and the 80D's caps out at 5.6 on the zoom end at 135. So, all right, that is the, all right. Vlogging test complete. Back to the video. These vlogging tests, just really quick. These are workouts, because look at these things. These are some giant cameras. 80D. Okay, actually back to the video this time. Now I'm gonna go take a nap. And we're back. But before we get settled in too much, we need to do our next very important test, and that's the indoors slash low light YouTube studio test in case you want to use one of these cameras as your very own YouTube studio camera. Ooh, okay, and this is the indoor slash low light test of the two cameras. So I do have them set up. This is the exact same lighting, the exact same everything that you just saw. This is the image coming out of the Canon M50, and this is the image coming out of the Canon 80D. Now I do have them set to roughly equivalent focal lengths. I have them both set to intelligent auto and 1080p 30 frames per second. And they both have their kit lenses on. I'm not trying to play any tricks where I put my Sigma 18 to 35 on one and totally cheat. So kit lenses, everything's the same. M50, 80D, this is the kind of image quality you can expect if you're trying to use one of these with their kit lens as your YouTube studio. Now I do think they're both really good cameras, and you can tweak them manually to make them really look almost however you want. This is a staple of YouTube. People have been using the 80D for years, and people have really started to come around to the M50, I think, here very recently. Hopefully these videos will help out with that because I, think it's a fantastic camera. Okay, back to the video. Okay, I promise now we are back for the final time, so go ahead and get settled in. Second up in the most important aspects of cameras is what is actually most important to me. Fiddliness. Now it's time to talk about fiddliness between these two monster cameras. Now there are two parts of fiddliness, in my book. There is how easy is the camera body itself to use? Does it have awesome buttons and dials? Does it have the ability to get what you want without having to press too many buttons? Like, I'm a big fan of physical buttons that let me change stuff without having to dig into a menu system. No matter how good the menu system is, I will always prefer to have physical buttons and dials. Now, both of these cameras do it a little differently. For part one of fiddliness, I will say that the 80D has a little more. It has way more buttons. It lets you customize a lot more stuff from it. It is way easier to hold, and it is a more robust camera. I feel more confident taking this places because I don't think it's gonna break. Plus it's weather sealed, so if it's raining a little bit or snowing or slush or any kind of other gross weather that we have now, I mean, it's beautiful today, but it has been gross here recently. I'd feel more confident taking the 80D out than the M50. But the M50 is no slouch either. It does have enough buttons and dials to make sure that before you hit record, you can get the settings you want. But there is that second part of fiddliness, like we mentioned in that 80D video on Monday, is the fiddliness. How easy is it to get the video after you hit record? It's all great once you set something up, but once you hit record, how well does it work and how easy is it to get your video? For example, I'm currently recording on a Sony RX100 Mark V, plugged into a recorder, and it's got audio. It is fiddly to set up. It takes a huge pain in the butt to get it set up. However, once I hit record on the recorder, it is so great. I can see my audio levels. Even though I'm pretty far away from the camera right now, I can still see that I'm in focus. I can see my exposure, I can see my framing, I can see everything, and I just trust it to work. So it crushes fiddliness number two. And these, also once you hit record, you can do much of the same things. You can see your settings, and one of the nice things that I really like about the Canon cameras in general is once you're recording and you're in front of the camera, you can see your settings and you can change your settings from in front of the camera. Like one of the frustrations, so let's say right now I'm using this RX100, right? If I have a setting off, I have no idea. I just have to, all I can see is the video quality. I have it set in aperture priority, so I don't need to mess with much. But I can't see anything, and if I needed to change something, I'd have to walk around behind the camera, fiddle with the camera, get it going, and then come back in front of the camera, which is just, that's a pain. But so I like being able to do all that without having to mess around with anything. Just use the touchscreens and you've changed it while you're in front of the camera. Like, I know so many people in the comments are like, well, why do you complain about these little things? But I make lots of online videos, and I'm sure you guys do too. And every little bit of time that you have to waste fiddling with the camera is time that you are not making a video. And those seconds add up into hours. Another thing that I will mention real quick before we go back to the studio on ease of use is, look at these cameras. This is a huge camera. This is a tiny camera. This thing can go anywhere and do almost anything, and nobody cares that you have this tiny camera. People, the bigger your camera gets, the more people get weirded out when you're vlogging or you're making videos in public. So the smaller your footprint, the more people are not gonna be like, what's that crazy guy? What's he doing? What's he doing with that camera? That crazy guy, he's being crazy. So if I can get a smaller camera with just as good quality, I will err on that side. Okay, that's enough talking outdoors. It's freezing. I'm ready to go back inside, have some hot cocoa. Back to the video. Okay, for real, now we're back. Mostly. Yeah, I'd say we're back. I'm exhausted now. And last but certainly not least, mainly when we talk about these interchangeable lens cameras, both cameras come from the same lineage. I mean, they have roughly the same internals. However, the 80D will not only work with Canon's EFS lenses, but also the full frame EF lenses with, the additional crop. That EF lineup is one of the largest in the world and really makes the 80D a versatile platform. You don't need any adapters, it just works. The M50, on the other hand, natively uses the EFM lineup, which is a pretty limited lens system in general. Canon has been trickling out some new lenses for that, but it really feels like their focus is now shifted to the RF lineup, and the EFM and the EF is, they are still making them, but it definitely does not feel like the priority. Now, that's not necessarily a deal breaker though, because with a Canon branded adapter, you can easily adapt those same EF and EFS lenses to the M50 with full functionality. It does make the tiny body pretty awkward to hold when you put one of those huge lenses on it, but my cameras spend most of their lives on a tripod anyway, so for me personally, it's not that big of a deal and opens up a whole world for the M50. So what, right? So which of these two cameras should you get? I know I usually talk about how each of the cameras has its own benefits and both could have their own place in a kit, but I'm really kind of having a tough time with that this go around. Yes, the 80D has extra physical dials, it's weather sealed, and it doesn't need an adapter for the EF lenses, but it's big, it's heavy, and it's almost twice as expensive, and the image quality, you know, for that extra price and weight, it's almost identical. For my money and my recommendation, I have no problem recommending the M50 all day long. Dual pixel autofocus, crazy small body, easily adapted to the most common lens lineup in existence. You add all that up and that makes a win to me. In fact, it's so good, I think we'll probably make a video on Friday talking about just how much I love this camera and that somebody should buy one. Maybe you. Thanks for watching.